Tes, mohon menempati kursi yang di depan dulu. Yuk, para peserta PPDS, tes 1 mohon menempati kursi yang paling depan dulu. 10 menit lagi acara akan segera dimulai. Oh iya, kembali diinformasikan dan diingatkan agar tidak makan dan minum di ruang aula. Kembali kami informasikan untuk tidak makan dan minum di ruang aula. Tolong diisi kursi yang di depan dulu, Dok, silakan. Ini ada Dr. Fernandi, Wakil Manajer Pendidikan. Silakan kepada Bapak Ibu dokter sekalian, beserta didik SP1 dan SP2 untuk menempati kursi yang di depan dulu. Ayo Dok, pindah bergeser ke depan, dipenuhi dulu yang baris di depannya ini. Yang di baris belakang agar pindah ke depan, agar dipenuhi dulu yang di depan.
Ya, saya minta dengan hormat yang di belakang. Ya, ini cara kita untuk menghargai tamu kita. Ya, Prof Anita nanti akan memberikan guest lecture tidak dengan duduk di belakang, duduk di depan. Ya, ayo. Masih ada yang duduk di belakang, saya lihat itu. Ya. Yang masih duduk di belakang saya minta dengan hormat, ya. Tolong kita sama-sama ya menghargai tamu kita dengan tolong isi dulu yang di depan tempat duduknya ya. Ya, tolong yang masih di belakang saya minta dengan hormat untuk kita mengisi ya. Prof Ovi setelah hadir. Ayo. Tolong yang di belakang pindah. Kita isi di depan.
Kalau di rundownnya di share sama Arna.
Kembali kami ingatkan untuk tidak makan dan minum di ruangan aula. Mohon yang kursi di depan ini diisi dulu, Dok. Yang baru datang langsung ke depan saja. Kursi yang depan ini diisi dulu. Acara akan segera kita mulai. Yang baru datang langsung duduk di depan, Dok. Baris depan ini diisi dulu. Yang baru datang tolong langsung segera mengisi bangku yang di depan. Langsung ke depan, yang baru datang tolong diarahkan ke depan.
Oh, ini laksi. Oh, ini laksi.
Selamat siang. Kepada para hadirin, dokter diminta untuk mengisi kursi yang ada di depan terlebih dahulu. Selamat siang. Sebelum kita memulai acara hari ini, izinkan saya membacakan peraturan aula. Pertama, kepada para hadirin dilarang untuk makan dan minum di dalam ruangan aula. Kedua, diharap para hadirin untuk mematikan handphone atau mengatur pada aturan getar. Good afternoon, all doctors, professors, and all our esteemed guests. Before we begin today's agenda, let us first watch the following safety induction video.
Selamat datang di Gedung IMERI, Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Indonesia. Sebagai salah satu universitas berskala internasional, kami memperhatikan keamanan dan keselamatan. Ada beberapa prosedur khusus terkait keadaan darurat dan bencana. Gedung IMERI adalah kawasan bebas asap rokok. Saat ini Anda berada di Aula IMERI FKUI di lantai 1. Toilet berada di samping lift dan musola berada di lantai sky. Ruangan aula memiliki 5 pintu darurat, 2 di sebelah kanan, 2 di sebelah kiri, dan 1 di depan podium. Harap perhatikan pintu terdekat dengan Anda. Bagi penyandang disabilitas, harap menempati tempat duduk di area yang sudah disediakan. Aula ini dilengkapi dengan alat deteksi asap, sprinkle, dan alarm tanda kebakaran. Alat pemadam api ringan terletak di seberang lift, dan hidran terletak di samping lift. Tersedia juga alat defibrillator eksternal otomatis untuk digunakan apabila terjadi keadaan henti jantung. Jika terjadi kebakaran, maka alarm kebakaran akan berbunyi. Tetap tenang dan ikuti petunjuk berikut. Berikan prioritas pada ibu hamil, lanjut usia, anak kecil, dan bantulah para penyandang disabilitas agar mereka keluar terlebih dahulu. Bagi wanita yang menggunakan sepatu berhak tinggi, lepaskan terlebih dahulu sepatu Anda sebelum Anda menuju titik kumpul. Segera menuju pintu darurat terdekat dari Anda dan keluar dari ruangan aula. Ikuti panduan dari safety officer menuju tangga darurat dengan mengikuti petunjuk evakuasi. Jika terjebak asap, tetap ikuti petunjuk evakuasi dengan merunduk atau merangkak untuk menghindari asap. Jika terjadi bencana gempa bumi, tetap tenang dan mohon siaga sambil tetap berada di dalam ruangan. Berlindunglah dengan cara menunduk di bawah meja atau bila memungkinkan, keluar melalui pintu darurat di sisi kanan aula untuk menuju ke area dekat lift, di mana terdapat tiang-tiang gedung sebagai sisi pondasi terkuat gedung, dan jangan menggunakan lift. Pastikan tidak ada benda-benda di atas yang dapat menimpa Anda. Lalu berjongkok di lantai sambil tetap melindungi kepala Anda. Apabila dirasa gempa telah selesai, segera ikuti petunjuk evakuasi menuju titik kumpul. Tetaplah menunggu di titik kumpul sampai ada perintah berikutnya. Jangan kembali ke ruangan sampai situasi dinyatakan aman oleh safety officer kami. Kawasan Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Indonesia di Salemba, khususnya Gedung IMERI, memiliki sistem dan personil keamanan yang bekerja 24 jam. Jika terjadi huru-hara, mohon untuk tidak panik atau meninggalkan ruangan sampai safety officer kami masuk ke dalam ruangan untuk memberi instruksi evakuasi. Jauhi masa huru-hara supaya tidak menjadi sasaran kemarahan. Bila diminta untuk meninggalkan ruangan, biarkan lampu tetap menyala, matikan semua peralatan yang ada, dan bawalah barang-barang berharga Anda. Safety officer akan memandu Anda untuk menuju titik aman yang berada jauh dari tempat kejadian. Jika terdapat korban henti jantung selama aktivitas berlangsung, mintalah pertolongan dari orang sekitar untuk menghubungi tim medis reaksi cepat RSUPN Cipto Mangunkusumo di nomor tertera di atas ini. Petugas K3 Gedung IMERI selalu memiliki catatan jumlah peserta yang berada di dalam aula gedung dan akan mendata kembali di area evakuasi untuk memastikan semua peserta sudah keluar dari gedung. Demikian informasi keselamatan dari kami. Terima kasih atas perhatian Anda dan selamat beraktivitas.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. To our honorable guest, Dean of Faculty of Medicine Universitas Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Ari Fahri Alsyam, spesialis penyakit dalam, konsultan gastroenterohepatologi, Master of Molecular Biology. Vice Dean for Education, Research and Student Affairs, Profesor Dr. Dwiana Okvianti, spesialis obstetri ginekologi konsultan, Master of Public Health. Manager for Academic and Students Affairs, Medical Doctor, Specialist and Subspecialist, Dr. M. Yunir, spesialis penyakit dalam, konsultan endokrin, metabolik, diabetes. Dr. Fernandi Mugni, spesialis obstetri ginekologi konsultan. Associate Professor from the University of Melbourne, Associate Professor Anita Horvath, as well as Senior Lecturer from University of Melbourne, Dr. Nilakshi, and of course our doctors and other guests for today's events. Good afternoon, professors, doctors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Salsabila Amanda. Allow me to guide our event this afternoon. First and foremost, we offer praise and gratitude to God for whose blessings we're able to gather this afternoon for this event, which is a guest lecture on clinical research with Associate Professor Anita Horvath from the University of Melbourne, Australia. Professor Horvath is an academic lead in the clinical research programs at the Department of Medical Education, Melbourne Medical School, and is a course convener on the Master of Clinical Research program, as well as a Master of Research program. This event hopes to provide insight to doctors and residents of specialist and subspecialist study programs of Faculty of Medicine Universitas Indonesia on your study opportunities as part of our lifelong journey as medical doctors. Distinguished guests, let us begin today's event with a welcoming speech from the Dean of Faculty of Medicine Universitas Indonesia, Profesor Ari Fahri Alsyam. Please welcome Prof. Ari.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Professor Anita Horvath from University of Melbourne, and also our friend from University of Melbourne. We have Vice Dean and also Manager of Education for specialists and subspecialists, participants, and also we have participants online as well, and some of our academic staff join with this special lecture today. So we know that we have good collaboration with Melbourne until now. I think around 20 years we have collaborations, especially for double degree program for undergraduate students. And start from several years ago, we have also started a double degree program for specialists as well. But until now, only several participants or several students to join with this double degree program. So that's why we have Professor Anita Horvath to explain you about the programs. Why we need double degree programs? First, I think it is a good chance for you as a resident in our residency programs to what we call that. It is good for you to studying abroad because you know that if you go somewhere abroad, they will you offers culture exposures, and also diverse perspectives, and also improve your English, of course, and the chance to build the global network, enhancing personal and academic growth. I think this is the important for you. That's why I think this is the important for you to know about what is the programs of our double degree programs. The problem is who want to pay these programs. Actually, we have a meeting with the LPDP. Hope so that LPDP will support this program. Please applause about this. That's why we have Professor Anita, and then Professor Anita will explain about what is the importance of these programs. And as far as you know, I think Melbourne is, I think now around 25, the big university, the best big 25, the best university in the world, I think. Yeah. And in our experience about double degree program for undergrad student, we know that some of our students during in Melbourne, they also can publish their research. This is important from our students. But some of them, not only one publication, some of them several publication. And then the important one, the important things then after get Bachelor of Science as undergraduate student, they can back to Melbourne Uni to continue to take a PhD in the future. So I think this is a good chance for you if you join these programs and then you finish your master degree programs from Melbourne and also especially from us. And then maybe if you want to continue your study to be the PhD in the Melbourne, it is easy for you in the future. So that's why I think this is an important program and hope so that you will join these programs. Again, I would like to say thank you for Professor Anita who want to share the informations about these programs, and I think this is a good time for us to discuss about that, and hope so in the future there is increased numbers of the participants from these programs. Once again, thank you for attending this meeting, and then thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Ari, for your welcoming speech. Next, we will have a welcoming speech from Professor Ovi. Please welcome Prof. Ovi.
Baiklah, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, I think the welcoming speech already done by Professor Ari. Saya akan berbicara kepada para peserta saat ini, mengapa program ini penting untuk para calon maupun para residen yang sudah menjadi residen. Jadi program ini merupakan satu-satunya program double degree spesialis yang ada di Indonesia. UI yang memulai ini. Dan apa keuntungannya? Keuntungan pertama, diterima sebagai PPDS UI dengan sendirinya diterima sebagai peserta Magister Program of Clinical Research di Melbourne. Jadi Anda cuma satu kali tes, Anda diterima sekaligus sebagai PPDS di FKUI kalau Anda mendaftar untuk program double degree ini. Itu persoalan pertama. Hal yang kedua, kita sudah mengatur sedemikian rupa sehingga program Magister of Clinical Research ini yang di Australia sana harusnya 2 tahun, kita berhasil minta menjadi 1,5 tahun. Nah ini keuntungannya. Jadi menjadi lebih hemat dan yang full ada di Melbourne-nya hanya 1 tahun. Tentunya 1,5 tahun ini berarti harus membayar uang sekolah 1,5 tahun, which is itu lumayan mahal. Jadi berapa dolar Pak? Dokter? 56.000 ya. Jadi sekitar 56.000 dolar yang dibutuhkan untuk ikut program ini. Yang kalau sudah diterima sebagai PPDS, kalau mendaftarnya sebagai PPDS FKUI untuk double degree, berarti sudah diterima. Jadi begitu diterima sebagai PPDS, Anda harus membayar sebagai PPDS. Karena kalau Anda sudah LPDP untuk PPDS-nya, Anda tidak bisa mengajukan lagi LPDP untuk Magister of Clinical Research-nya. Kalau mau ikut harus bayar sendiri. Jadi LPDP mensyaratkan hanya 1 yang dibayar. Jadi yang bisa mendaftar adalah mereka yang membayar program spesialis, bisa mendaftarkan LPDP hampir 60.000 US, 60.000 Australian dollar ya, untuk program ini. Dan ini diperkenankan oleh LPDP tanpa harus ikut tes, karena sudah LPDP akan menerima dan Melbourne sudah menerima kalau diterima sebagai PPDS di FKUI dari prodi apapun, maka boleh untuk masuk ke program magister ini. Syaratnya hanya 1, lolos dalam MDU MDK yang 6 bulan, kita tetap harus ikut MDU MDK-nya, harus lolos, dan IELTS pada saat nanti akan berangkat ke Melbourne minimal 6,5. Ya, tapi di Melbourne-nya hanya 1 tahun. Jadi kalau yang 6 bulan program yang ada di sini. Jadi pergi 1 tahun sesudah MD UMDK, kembali lagi melanjutkan seluruh program spesialis dengan tambahan gelar Magister of Clinical Research. Apa untungnya? Magister of Clinical Research sudah mempunyai penelitian. Pasti harus ada produk penelitian. Dan penelitian ini yang sudah kita negosiasikan dengan ketua program studi. Anda di Indonesia nggak usah buat penelitian lagi. Jadi temannya yang sedang berkeringat penelitian, kamu pulang sudah dengan penelitian. Nanti adapted menjadi satu karya ilmiah. Boleh penelitian yang sama, tapi menjadi satu karya ilmiah. Tidak usah keluar uang lagi untuk penelitian. Begitu di Indonesia itu bisa diupload sebagai karya ilmiah sekaligus untuk program PPDS-nya. Karena program PPDS sebetulnya tidak mensyaratkan riset, tapi mensyaratkan mengupload suatu karya ilmiah. Sudah 2 keuntungan. Jadi sudahlah programnya bisa dibiayai oleh LPDP. Anda pulang fokus untuk belajar secara profesi, untuk menyelesaikan pendidikan profesi, tidak terganggu lagi dengan penelitian. Dan selama di Melbourne, tadi sudah disampaikan Prof. Ari, andai ini terjadinya pada zaman saya jadi PPDS, itu mimpi saya, karena saya dulu nggak punya uang. 1 tahun bisa berada di Melbourne dengan para peneliti handal top 100, sehingga karena itu masuk di dalam LPDP, minimal top 100, tapi 10 best in Melbourne, nanti Prof. Anita akan menjelaskan. Itu cita-cita, kita bisa bersekolah di luar negeri, dibayari, punya teman di luar, apalagi kalau Anda akan kembali ke daerah, melakukan riset sudah dengan kompetensi riset yang internasional, karena lulusan dari Melbourne, menurut saya itu kesempatan yang luar biasa, dan itulah yang kita perjuangkan dengan Pak Dekan selama ini untuk menggolkan program double degree ini. Dan yang diterima sampai hari ini baru UI, karena dianggap bahwa program kita di UI disamakan 6 bulannya itu MD UMDK sudah setara dengan apa yang dikerjakan di Melbourne, sehingga program di Melbourne-nya bisa dipersingkat menjadi 1,5 tahun. Jadi ini secara global yang saya sampaikan. Nanti Dr. Anita akan menjelaskan apa program Magister of Clinical Research. So Dr. Anita will explain about this program and what is the what will you have your experience there together with this program, and I know that it's really worth to do. Silakan.
Yeah, maybe I'll give my experience. Actually, my master programs, my master of molecular biology that I taken during my residency in internal medicine at the time, 1998. Yeah, so at the time there's a program for World Bank, and only 2.5 years at a time from Queensland University. So that's why my obsession. Maybe in the future we have most of our resident can go somewhere to take master and back, finish their specialist, and then take the master program like I did before 20 years ago. Ya, jadi saya berharap begitu.
Tepuk tangan tuh Pak Dekan. Jadi kita harus mengikuti. Ini role modelnya. Nanti di Melbourne kita punya program kelas internasional. Mungkin sebagian yang dari UI memahami kelas internasional, di mana mahasiswa kita juga punya double degree tapi hanya bachelor. Juga dengan Dr. Anita. So we have bachelor's program with our medical student, sehingga Anda akan ketemu dengan banyak mahasiswa Indonesia di sana yang sedang mengambil program bachelor. Tapi di kelas internasional mereka paid by themselves. Harus punya uang cukup untuk bayar itu. Nah sekarang dibuka kesempatan, kita menyampaikan saja ya Pak Dekan, bahwa penyerapan LPDP itu baru 10%. Jadi kalian rasa saya mempunyai kesempatan cukup besar, andai bisa lolos wawancaranya. Janji dari LPDP waktu kami menghadap untuk program ini, kalau Anda bisa diterima di UI, LPDP menyatakan kami nggak akan wawancara aneh-aneh lagi dok, kalau udah diterima di UI, mereka pasti cream of the cream. Jadi itu keuntungannya tuh, berusaha apalagi sudah diterima di program, Anda masih bisa mendaftar untuk program ini dengan seizin dari ketua program studi, tapi yang belum mendaftar itu keuntungannya, diterima di UI, Anda akan direcognize oleh LPDP dan wawancaranya tetap akan dilakukan, tapi mereka sudah merekognisi kalau bisa diterima di UI itu adalah orang-orang yang pasti sudah cream of the cream, sehingga tidak akan dipersulit. tinggal jangan sampai IELTS Anda kurang dari 6,5, itu wajib hukumnya ya. Jadi ini yang nanti menjadi bekal kenapa kita menganggap program ini penting. Dan saat ini kita punya sekitar 40 student di Australia terbagi antara University of Melbourne dengan Monash, dan kita akan lebih dari bangga kalau bisa punya lebih dari 40. It is okay if it is more than 40 in your program. 20, I think 20, 25. Okay, jadi siap. Nice problem. So around 20 or 25, I think it will be accepted. Jadi tetap ada batas untuk penerimaan, nggak bisa 200 semuanya diterima. Jadi tetap bersaing, tapi itu menurut saya adalah a good challenge for you all to have this program. At least 25 of you can have this program, I think. I hope Anita will accept that one. Okay, then we will start with Anita, which you can hear carefully and then try to make your dream happen. Okay, please Anita.
I don't know. Okay, so would you like? Yes, thank you. I'll go up. So before I commence, I just wanted to say a deep gratitude to Dean Ari and Prof Ovi and Dr. Unair here, who have welcomed me into your program as part of your specialist training. Prof Ovi and I had some wonderful discussions in Melbourne. It was very cold. I had a injured ankle, if Prof Ovi remembers, but we had a dream that we would try to continue to work together in research training through the Master of Clinical Research, and also looking for ways in which we can build collaborations and strengthen the partnership that we already have through our undergraduate program. And this has been a long passion for both of us, really, that we really wanted to see the ways in which we collaborate, connect, and innovate together. And it gives me great pleasure today to talk to you about the Master of Clinical Research and the program that we run at the University of Melbourne. I might just pop this down and see if, otherwise it might get a bit echoey. So, good. So, is there a way I can navigate the slides? Excellent. All right. There we go. So I'm, as I was kindly introduced, I'm Associate Professor Anita Horvath. I'm from the Melbourne Medical School, where I lead clinical research training, in particular within our Department of Medical Education. And one of my titles is Course Convener of the Graduate Programs in Clinical Research. I'm also joined here today with Dr. Nalakshi Waijatalaki, who's one of my senior lecturers within the clinical research training team. She's sitting here at the front, and and Nalakshi and I work together in terms of trying to develop clinicians to become excellent researchers. That's what we're really passionate about. And whether that's you're an undergraduate student or a postgraduate student, as many of you are here today, a master's, what we're really wanting to see is develop your enthusiasm for research and to start helping you on your journey as you become researchers of your own. So I like to share this slide, and I'll always like to know in the audience how many people have actually been to Melbourne. Who's been to Melbourne? I know there's a few up here. Couple in the audience. Okay, so a couple have been to the university, been to Melbourne. And for those of you who are not familiar with Melbourne, we were talking quite a lot recently that how different the Melbourne city is to other cities in Australia. And it's one of the most multicultural cities in Australia. We welcome people from all around the world. My parents are originally from Hungary. Nilakshi's from Sri Lanka. My other team members are from Bangladesh. We have Australians who were part of the first fleet. And we have a huge diversity of people that teach into the program as well as connect with students within our university. So we are a very welcoming community because of our multiculturalism. And as some of our alumni were telling us last night, apparently Korean food's the new thing in Melbourne. So as you can see, very diverse. But what I wanted to show you was this is our campus. Here we have all our residential colleges around the edge here. We also have our sporting fields right in the middle. And then further back, what you can see is all our actual academic centres, research institutes. Further along is the city. And right at the back there, what you can see is the bay. So we are located quite close to some of our bayside beaches, and many of our students quite like exploring not only the university life, but also all the fabulous things that Melbourne has to offer. Am I pointing it? And for those of you who are not aware, the University of Melbourne is proudly the #1 university in Australia. We like to have that title. We are also ranked quite high in terms of overall. We are currently ranked 34 in the world. And in terms of the Faculty of Medicine, Dentistry and Health Sciences, we are the largest faculty for the university, and we contribute a lot to that ranking through our dedication to education and also our research. So we are considered, top 20 within clinical and medical health. So we are one of the leading medical schools as well within the world globally. And again, it's driven by our passion to really look at clinical research, clinical education, and clinical leadership. And those are our 3 pillars that we like to bring together, and that really drives our ranking in the world. So just a little bit about our medical school. We have our bachelor's program, we have our Doctor of Medicine, and as I mentioned, we're really passionate about clinical research education, and we are just in the process of developing a clinical leadership program as well. And underpinning all of that is our PhD program. We have a huge emphasis on clinical and health research. We have on our doorstep, not only do we have the medical school, but a number of research institutes from infectious disease, neuroscience, immunology. We have a large biotech company that's established right across the road. It's known as the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories. It's where we get all our blood products. And they actually export to the US as well in terms of blood products, and they do a lot of vaccine and blood-related research as well. And more recently, we have just had Moderna. So many of you will know the Moderna company. It has established one of its leading research facilities in Melbourne as well. So we have connections not only to laboratory research, but also to clinical research as well as biotech. We also have a number of hospitals right across the road from our Melbourne Medical School, which is just located here in this Y-shaped building. We have the Royal Melbourne Hospital right across the road. Currently, it's very difficult to access it because we have a big metro tunnel being built right outside our building. But hopefully by the time you come and join our program, you'll be able to easily access that. We also have the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre. For those of you who are interested in any form of cancer speciality in terms of whether it's skin cancer, so dermatology cancer, any other form of breast cancer, prostate cancer, any form of cancer, this is one of the leading sites in Victoria for cancer research, cancer care, as well as education. So we've housed all of this right across the road from us. We also have the Women's Hospital just located right next to the Royal Melbourne, as well as the Royal Children's Hospital right at the top. So you can see that we are centrally located not only to our hospitals, but also to many research institutes, which hopefully, okay, I was going to play this video, so let's see if it will work for me. Oh, thank you. So, as part of this video, what you can see is, I'm just trying to orientate, there's the Royal Melbourne Hospital. That's the Melbourne Medical School just there as that Y-shaped building. That's the Victoria Comprehensive Cancer Centre. Here we have our Peter Doherty Institute, which leads infectious disease, and we have our infectious disease reference laboratories located there. We also have the Walter and Eliza Hall, which is a globally leading research institute for immunology and vaccine development and cancer technologies as well. So you can see that we are very closely located, to all of these activities. That's the Alan Gilbert building where our dean sits, our city in the background, and our bay. So lots of we can skip to the next slide. So just some of the research institutes that you could be a part of as part of your master's year. We have the Doherty Institute, which is the infectious disease and immunology, the Florey, which is the neuroscience building, the Murdoch Children's Research Institute, cancer. If you're interested in terms of biotechnologies or medical devices, we've got a number of leading research institutes that also are involved in that form of research. Okay, I jumped ahead. So, might get you. Thank you. So, as part of the Master of Clinical Research program, what we have designed is really a program that's designed for clinicians and health professionals in order to develop advanced research coursework skills as well as undertaking a research project. Now, the course itself is run as 3 different levels in which you can underdo a graduate certificate, diploma, or a Master of Clinical Research. Typically, when you're in Melbourne, this would take about 18 months to complete, but in our discussions with Universitas Indonesia, we've created a model in which students can complete this within 12 months while they are in Melbourne, but with some additional teaching that occurs during your program here. But the time in Melbourne is just that 12 months. We do, in terms of the program that we have talked for your cohort, we do have a clinical research thesis, which is, I know, one of the things that Prof Ovi was quite keen to have that opportunity for you to be able to complete a research thesis as part of your specialist training. Some of the subjects in terms of the core subjects that you would undertake as part of the Master of Clinical Research is Principles in Clinical Research. Then a second subject, which is focusing on study design in clinical research. So this is giving you that comprehensive skills in really understanding the different types of studies that are available to you. We look at all forms, including quantitative study designs, as well as a really good emerging area, which is qualitative, and where we look at patient perspectives or clinicians' perspectives on the way in which we might be treating patients, or finding out more level about quality of life for patients. So we try to cover not only randomised controlled trials, but all the types of study designs that are really available to you as part of the clinical research field. So not every research question is going to be answered by a randomised controlled trial. So we really want you to have that broad understanding of the different study designs that are out there. We also have undertake a subject known as responsibilities in clinical research. And for those of you who've been involved in any form of clinical research, there's a lot of governance and ethics that are involved in any research project that involves recruiting humans. And so this subject really advises you on all the ethical principles related to research governance, as well as ensuring that you're able to write a really good ethics application. Again, you're always going to need to write an ethics application whenever you are involved, whether it's recruiting patients or even using patient data. So we need to write ethics even if we're trying to access electronic medical records. So it's a really important subject for you to understand ethics and integrity. Now, no project can be done without knowing how to analyse your data. So we do a subject purely looking at the statistics, using the quantitative statistical models that you can use to interpret your data. But as I mentioned, we're also very interested in qualitative research. So you also cover modules on qualitative research and how to understand analysis for qualitative work. One of the fundamentals as well in terms of clinical research is that the first step is designing your project and implementing your project. And the first thing people think about is I want to, publish my work, which is really, really important. However, we know in the research cycle there are many other elements that are just as equally important in terms of our research projects. And so we have a core subject known as research development and knowledge translation. So this is where we talk about the legal aspects of your project. So project management, who are you going to need as part of your project team? How many research assistants are you going to need? How are you going to budget for those research assistants? You want to recruit 20,000 patients. Okay, so how are you going to manage the recruitment of 20,000 patients? Do you have enough members in your team to be able to manage that? Okay, so they're really important questions when we're designing research projects. And so we have dedicated a space within our course to really talk about legal, financing, governance, all of those elements that are outside, but just as important for that research project. The other thing that we need to do is it's great to have research findings, but it's only as good as what people do with those findings. Yep. So we need to be able to translate those research findings into action. Because otherwise, that journal article is just going to sit in the journal. It's not going to do the work for anyone, right? Papers can't do anything. So we spend a core component of that subject talking about all the things that you need to do to get research into practice. Okay, so you found that this intervention is going to benefit my patient. Yep. Okay, so how am I going to convince the senior clinician that this is important and we need to adopt this new form of practice? Okay, so we talk about those concepts of research translation and knowledge translation. So these are our core subjects. These are what every student needs to undertake. And then we have a choice of electives. We have a subject on advanced clinical trial design. We have our subject, one of my subject coordinators that I work with in clinical research proposal, where we develop research proposals. And of course, we cannot escape the impacts of the way in which we're digitising our health system and the data that is being collected through our electronic medical records. And I actually had a meeting just recently with part of your social security team. Is there a directorate of social security where you collect a lot of information about interventions that are happening in your clinics, and they're really interested in understanding what do we do with that data? We want to know what to do. So these are subjects about thinking about digital health and how you use digital health and how you might implement digital health into your practice. So these are your electives that you can choose. And then you have your clinical research thesis. And for your cohort, the idea of this clinical research thesis is that the thesis is linked to your specialty discipline, that you are working within a specialty with a specialist that is connected with your area of specialisation. So we are trying to link you with your future career pathways, and it gives you that opportunity to really delve deeply into that area with an Australian researcher and clinician. I might skip. Well, all I wanted to mention with this is part of our, our teaching, the way we teach these modules is that they're carried out in intensive teaching blocks. So you won't be expected to come to classes every day. We have 4 days of teaching, and then you'll have assessments, and then you can go and continue working on your research project. So This, as I said, this course is designed so that you can interact and complete your project at the same time as doing your coursework. So the way in which this is designed is there are intensive teaching blocks, and I've got some dates there from our 2023 program that gives you an indication of how those blocks are run. So those are the days when you're in class, the other days is when you're completing your project. I've got a link to this, but this is really just a link further on in this presentation. However, this is again some of the elective subjects that you can take. The other elective that I didn't mention was the leadership in clinical settings. So you're also able to take an elective in leadership if that's something that's of interest to you, that you're wanting to refine your clinical leadership or your leadership skills. Okay. So I've talked a little bit about already the research development and translation subject, but I just wanted to highlight, you know, how these are the kind of concepts that we undertake. So we're talking about, you know, the maps in which you have the process maps that you need to complete, commercialisation pathways, and also knowledge translation pathways. So for example, again, how do you make that business plan? How do you lead that project? And make sure that that project succeeds. Okay, so a lot of the question I think I'll get from this group is what does the thesis involve? And so really the thesis project is where you get that opportunity to work directly with a clinical researcher in one of our teaching hospitals or at one of our research institutes. So for example, at the Walter Eliza Hall, we have a number of clinical research programs that are related to cancer trials. So if that was someone, like for example, hematologists that are doing clinical trials, if hematology is your area of interest, you may actually spend some time within the Walter Eliza Hall and also work within the Royal Melbourne Hospital. So there is a bit of, you know, flexibility in terms of the way these projects may be brought together. And again, so you can have that opportunity to see the work in the institute as well as seeing some clinical work within the hospital. And so the idea here is that you will work with a clinician and design a research question, working with them, and then implement that research question during your time in Melbourne. And as part of that, you will need to generate a thesis of up to about 11,000 words for submission. And I know that one of the key outcomes that Universitas Indonesia is quite interested in is seeing something that you can publish out of this. So we will make sure that when we talk to our clinician researchers, that you're working on projects that can lead to publications, or you will contribute to a bigger project that they may already have happening within their group, so that again, you'll have that opportunity to contribute to a publication through that work. Most of the students that undertake the clinical research thesis, I actively encourage them to become part of projects that are already happening at the hospitals. It's much more likely, and then they'll allocate you to a part of a bigger project that will become your project of your own. So there is no expectation that you come to Melbourne and design your own project. It's very hard to get people to work on a project that they don't currently have funded. So we talked about how projects need to be funded and you need to be able to recruit. And so it's much easier for you to be part of a project that is already actively recruiting, project that already has data sets for, and you can design research questions and work with those clinical researchers to help establish that project. So as I mentioned, you've got the option of undertaking this in a large range of different clinical schools. We have a number of clinical schools. Not only do we have the Royal Melbourne Hospital right across the road, but we also have, and our different clinical schools have different areas of specialisation in terms of research. So just for your information, for example, the Austin Hospital has a real interest in transplant surgery and immunology related to organ rejection. So that might be, if that's something that you're interested in, the Austin would be where you would go to. For example, St Vincent's Hospital also has a lot of cardiology specialisation. So if you're interested in cardiology or something to do with biotech devices, St Vincent's Hospital might be where you go. So what we will do is try to work with you to align you with the right clinical school with the right project. So that's another thing that I wanted to highlight, is that you don't need to go looking for projects of your own. We will help you facilitate that process once you enrol into the program. So in addition to that thesis that you need to undertake, you will also have to complete 2 oral presentations at the start of the thesis subject. You also need to complete an extended literature review. So hopefully you'll be able to get 2 publications out of your thesis. You might be able to complete, the foundations of a good lit review or a systematic review as part of that extended literature review. And then you'll also have your minor research thesis. So you could potentially see yourself, not during your time in Melbourne, but after you complete, to finish those papers as publications. Okay, so the question I always get, well, what specialities? What can I do this in? We cover almost every speciality that you can think of. I've listed, a range of common specialities. Now, don't get nervous if you don't see yours up there. The slide can only hold so much, right? So as I said, there's many, many more. And so I'm very happy to speak to anyone who doesn't have their speciality on that screen, and that you're very much welcome to ask me about it and who's working on it, and to talk to you about that in more detail. But they're all there. Okay, one of the questions I often get is, what are your benefits to doing the Master of Clinical Research? So for some of our graduates, and in particular for you as well as a clinician, you will often get asked about being involved in clinical trials. So if clinical trials is something that you're interested in pursuing after you finish and being involved in, and in particular, I've noticed this in those specialities that are in cancer care, a lot of doctors get asked, and in particular hematologists, to come involved in clinical trials. This is a pathway in which you can, you complete GCP training. You're really understanding all the governance aspects of how to be a principal investigator. So it gives you that pathway into the clinical trial industry. And I know that that's an area that's also being expanded here in Indonesia. Clearly, you get publications. We have a lot of students who go on to receive research awards. So a number of my clinicians who have completed it locally in Australia have gone on to win awards with the Stroke Foundation, for example, because they go on to present their work at leading conferences and then become, award recipients. So either research awards or conference awards. And I think for you, one of the most exciting things is that access to our journals. So we have an extensive journal catalogue. I don't think there's much that you can't access. and I often forget how much of a privilege that is. But you do have that access to our research journals. And as an alumni, you can continue to have access to that as well. And also doing the Master of Clinical Research really does provide career advancement opportunities. We've certainly seen, especially with our local students and our local clinicians, that it's an opportunity for them to use that as a stepping stone for their own internal career progression. So, they become more leading researchers within their teams at their hospitals. And as I mentioned, you become an alumni of our university. And so, as I mentioned, you've got alumni benefits. You can access all the resources that alumni come through with. You have networks and events that you can participate in for professional development. And you also have e-journal access. So you continue to be able to access that on completion of your degree. So these are some student testimonials that I thought that you might quite like to read. And I'm quite proud of some of my students who've done this. So we had a student completing an ophthalmology project. Any ophthalmologist trainees in the audience? No? Maybe online. Maybe online. We have a really awesome, and I didn't mention, an eye and ear hospital. So I have had a student complete, 2 students do ophthalmology projects, and I currently have someone working on the cochlear implant as well. We've got a really awesome eye and ear hospital, and this particular student went on to present in the USA. They competed at the University of Melbourne 3-minute thesis competition, and they've basically gone on to they won second place after doing the research translation subject. We really worked on 3 MTs, and they came second place at the university as a master's student, competing against PhD students, right? So that's an amazing accomplishment. And so you can see that, you know, that's one element. Others have gone on to publish multiple publications, and then others have gone into their clinical teams and said, I have become the person everyone comes to advise them on how to write ethics. I'm the person that they come to tell them how to design the project. So they become a central figure within their team, the leader of that. So this is all coming through from students and their feedback to me about what impacts the Master of Clinical Research has had on them. Okay, so I know we talked about, these are the fees for 2024. So the indicative total course fee for 2024 is 56,315. And so that's really the year-long fee. That's the course fee. That's the complete course fee. So those are just for you to be aware of. But I think as you've talked about, hopefully LPDP will be funding that for you, which will make life a lot easier in the future. And this is where you can access more information about how to apply, but for your cohort, you will come to me and talk to Prof Ovi about how to apply. And the last thing I had was, there's a link on these slides, and I'll provide these slides to all of you to be shared with, where you can find out more information about the Master of Clinical Research. So thank you everyone for your attention. I'm very happy to take any questions now.
So thank you very much for Prof. Anita. So please once again give a big applause for Prof. Anita.
Thank you. Thank you.
So is there any question, regarding these special programs? Yeah, I think this is a very good opportunity for you. Yeah, like already been mentioned by the Prof. Ovi, also Prof. Ari. Yeah. So we open the floor. I saw. Yeah, there is one. Can someone pass some? Yeah, you can just stand up, and can someone please pass the microphone? Thank you. Please mention your name and from which program or.
Thank you for the presentation and the opportunity given to us, Professor. My name is Husin, resident from Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation Program. I would like to ask a question. As you've mentioned in your presentation, one of the challenges in doing research is to translate it into a project that is applicable in clinical settings. As we all know, the healthcare settings in Indonesia and Australia can be very different, and the condition for research can also be very different. So my question is, are we required to take our data, and for the research, are we required to take the data from the research hospital that is provided by the program? Or is it possible to take our data from Indonesia, do some field work in Indonesia, so it is more applicable to the Indonesian? If we are required to take the data in Australia, is it part of the program to do clinical research in a more limited settings? And that is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is about the data. Yeah. Please, Prof. It's possible.
I don't know how your government would feel about someone taking data to Australia to use the data. And that's as wearing my ethics hat and sitting on the Human Research Ethics Committee in Melbourne, one of the biggest challenges we have is we know that the Indonesian government is very careful about data and ethics. And so that's not really a question for me, because I don't know if you can take your data and take it, because I know in Australia, sometimes the data is so well locked down that we can't even take it from the hospital, right? So I think there's some structural issues there around ethics that might prevent you from taking that data. Now, if you can get ethics, and I think that would then depend on you to get ethics, to be able to take that data and use that data in Australia. I guess the question is, the part of the purpose of doing something overseas is also having that opportunity to experience how research is done elsewhere. And I think, and then you can learn those skills and then apply them when you return. I think we are very careful to think about projects that are applicable. And so I think that would be some careful conversations with anyone who is interested in doing, an applicable project, how we could manage that. So we have had a number of students through our long-standing collaboration with UI around how do we make this translatable in Indonesia. So we certainly have a lot of clinicians who are familiar with this concept, and we can certainly work with you to talk about, okay, well, what might work? But it's also an opportunity to do something that maybe you can't do in Indonesia. I think it depends on how you look at it, right? So it's an opportunity to have a go and explore something that you go, well, this is a project I can't currently do in Indonesia, but how would I then potentially bring it to Indonesia? How do I make it happen? So there's different ways of looking at this question.
Maybe if there is some special collaboration, maybe, Prof. Yeah. If like his institution from some area or from some his institution, yeah. Maybe if they agree to make some special collaboration, maybe, yeah, maybe they would.
There's a bit of planning involved with that, though. So I think that would require, like, if that was something you really, really wanted to do, it would require some planning.
Yeah, maybe one question that for master clinical programs, we get data from retrospective or prospective research for your programs here?
It varies. So it depends on the projects. We have had, it depends on the prospective data that you're collecting. Often it makes it challenging if you're trying to, recruit, like we all know in clinical research, 12 months isn't long. And so to be able to try and collect meaningful data in 12 months can be quite challenging. We know that. And so, it depends on the patient population that you're trying to recruit from. So if you're looking at something where you're not seeing a patient once every month, that's not going to be viable. But if it's something that, we're getting routine every week, you're getting good numbers through, then yes. But it does depend a little bit on the question that you want to ask, which is part of the reason why I think the retrospective data is often the better. But you can then participate in observing other research that's going on where they are doing prospective. So I currently have a student who's looking at doing some osteoarthritis work, and they're looking at physical therapy as an intervention. They've already got a data set, so that student's going to use that data set and analyse data, but then as part of the prospective studies that they already have going on, they will observe the prospective study, but it won't rely on them getting that for their thesis.
Okay, any other question Or is it okay? Is it for? Is it the answer already? Answered already? Okay. The other, please. Please mention your name and from which program.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Prof. Anita Horvath. My name is Adrian Reynaldo. I'm from Cardiothoracic Surgery, Vascular and Vascular Surgery Residency Program.
Said the right word.
Yeah. Thank you for a very brief explanation about the program. It was a very interesting program for all of us here. I have several questions. The first one is about the funding. Like, I'm one of the LPDP awardee program. So is there any source of funding that I could apply, maybe from the Melbourne University of itself, or maybe from the Australian government? Because
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for the Australia, the university is I don't think we have a separate fund, but the Australia Awards. So there is, so a lot of, in fact, I have a lot of students from Indonesia who apply for Australia Awards and are in the Master of Clinical Research.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm not talking, like when I'm talking a lot, like for me, I think it's good when I get, 4. So, because it's a very competitive program. But what I'm saying is that students who apply for the Master of Clinical Research generally are competitive for the Australia Awards.
Okay, thank you.
So you need to look out for the Australia Awards.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is, like Prof. Ari said in the beginning, we will have 18-month program, 6 months here and 12 months in Australia. I mean, what will we do between the 6 months in Indonesia and 12 months in the Australia? Is it part of the MDK program, or is there any other program? And then after we arrive in the Australia, like maybe I'm from the cardiothoracic surgery program, do we have to approach the professor by ourselves, or do you have like some programs that, or some project that we could join when we arrive there? Yeah. And sorry, there is one last question. Sorry.
One by one, please.
Oh, yeah.
Anita,
Sure.
want to?
He's testing
Yes.
my memory.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Okay, please. Just
Sure.
I'm going to answer and then you can ask, then I'll see if you remember your last one. So you will have to complete the data analysis in clinical research, which is the one that while you're here. And I think the other one we talked about was the ethics. But you need the ethics in order to do your project, right? So we try to do as much of that as we can before you arrive. And then, so that's what happens in the 6 months prior. So the second, and then you complete the rest of the program when you're in Melbourne. The second question was about the project. Yeah. I've got a great cardiothoracic surgeon who I've worked with for a number of years, who loves having students. So my first point would be, can you please talk to this student and see if there's some commonality about your interests and their research interests. So we don't expect students to go and look for projects. I think that's a really big ask. If you've never been to Melbourne, how would you understand who to ask, right? So that's part of our job, is to try and match you with the right person.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
So when you apply and you're in so you're already in Indonesia for, you're doing 6 months. During that time, we will work out your project.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
And what was your last question?
Okay, sorry.
I remembered.
Okay, sorry, Professor. My last question is, we know that research is very dynamic and we only have very limited time, which is 12 months. And what will happen if we couldn't finish the research in 12 months? Will it be we know in Indonesia we have maximum, like maybe in my program is 15 semester. If we didn't finish the research in more than 12 months, what will happen then? Yeah, thank you.
So if you're enrolled in the clinical research thesis subject, you need to finish it in the 12 months. So it's really careful that we design it so that you can, right? We have to design it, and we're good at this, aren't we, Nalakshi? We're getting better. No, we are good at it. So that's the first thing we need to, that's where the conversation with the supervisor is really important. Is this achievable in 12 months? You also got to think there's two things here. The thesis that needs to be finished and then the publication. So for a thesis, you don't need to have it at publication level. Like, I don't expect you to have a paper written and accepted in order to get your thesis, okay? So many students submit theses that are not ready for publication because they're still in the process of recruiting. So it might be a pilot project and it will be a reporting of findings to date. So then you can still complete the project after, but you need to finish your thesis. So, but we usually know if there's a problem, and then we work that out as to what we do in the interim. So you're not the only one who asked that question.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Anita. There's one question from Zoom. Yeah, I will write it for you. So this is a question from Dr. Angeline. She's a resident from. Sorry, she's going to enter the program, and then the problem is she's only completed she already completed the master's program in biomedical science in FMUI before. Now she's enrolling in the residency for anatomical pathology residency. So during her master's, she served as a representative from University of Indonesia at the University of Malaysia postgraduate colloquium. So my focus in the master's program was on cancer. Yeah? If I want to apply for a master research program while pursuing my residency, could you please provide information for the project related to cancer?
Yes, and what type of cancer is my question.
Yeah.
What area?
It depends, yeah. Depends on which
so as I mentioned, we've got the Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, we've got the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer. Yeah, we have gynecological cancer.
It's a gynecology.
Yeah.
It's a gynae.
Yes. Yes, we have a fabulous researcher at the Royal Women's Hospital. Orla McNally is this the person that we've used previously. So in terms of areas, we have a lot. As I mentioned, the Victoria Comprehensive Cancer has breast, prostate, skin, colorectal. I mean, it's really sad, really. It's when you think about it. But we do research in all of those areas.
Oh yeah. Okay. Because of the time, one last question. Who wants to give last question? Oh, okay, please.
One last question.
Good afternoon, Professor Anita. Thank you so much for your magnificent presentation. It was very helpful for me, especially I'm a new student in here. My name is Nilo Ayu Sri Saraswati, and I'm a resident from Internal Medicine Department. I would like to ask you, well, for me, I don't really get, the clinical research program, master degree, can you please explain, do we only do research and publication itself, or do you have some kind of curricula for us, maybe like lecturing or something like that?
Yes. So those subjects I spoke about in terms of study design, data analysis and clinical research, they're all taught subjects. So they are days where you're in class with my different lecturers and we're talking specifically about study designs, ethics, research development. You've got an elective subject if you're really interested in advanced clinical trial design. So you're not just doing your project, you've got coursework as well, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next question is, if if for example, I am interested in endocrinology, then you have a specific hospital that can be placed by me to that specific department. Can I also study or learn about the clinical that you have in Australia? Because as we know, the diseases and everything is so different from Indonesia. Can I also, yeah.
So you can be part of so you can observe as part of the program. Obviously, you need to be licensed in Australia to do any clinical intervention work. So but you can certainly observe, because that would be you'd be part of that department. You could potentially work with the endocrinology department and ask them to say, can I follow you, or can I shadow you?
All right, okay. And for my last question, exactly. Professor, when is the closest enrollment for your program?
Okay. It is your last question?
Yeah, and I have also for you, Prof. Ovi.
Yes, if it is the last question, then I really already have a plan to explain it to you, how to come into this program. I hope I can speak in bahasa. Oke, jadi ini yang akan saya sampaikan memang, silakan duduk dulu mungkin nanti the last question ya. Bagaimana cara mendaftar untuk program ini? Kalau Anda amati yang bagi calon PPDS, itu kita sudah punya di dalam website kita untuk mendaftar double degree program. Jadi ini akan menjadi sebetulnya nilai tambah kalau mendaftar untuk double degree program, karena bila KPS tepat Anda akan mendaftar nanti aware bahwa Anda mendaftar untuk double degree program, itu ada nilai tambah tuh. Karena para KPS kita minta untuk mencoba meningkatkan jumlah yang double degree program, untuk meningkatkan jumlah riset klinis untuk kolaborasi kita dengan Melbourne. Jadi kalau bagi yang baru mau mendaftar, ini nilai tambah kalau Anda mendaftar di program ini. Mendaftar dulu, Anda diterima sebagai PPDS, kemudian baru Anda mendaftar untuk LPDP. Karena dengan Anda diterima sebagai PPDS di FKUI, tadi yang saya sudah sebutkan, automatically Anda sudah diterima untuk Unimelp, untuk Master of Clinical Research. Kalau seatnya masih cukup, karena tadi we already aware that your seat for this program is in some capacity, not 200 people coming together. Maybe I already discussed it's about 20 or 25 at most. Jadi kalau yang mendaftar rame-rame nanti 50, ya terpaksa diseleksi atau ditunda untuk yang berikutnya. Karena dalam satu kali enrollment, Anita sudah menyatakan bahwa mereka punya keterbatasan untuk enrollment, ya mungkin saya tidak tahu apakah bisa diperbesar ya, tapi between 20-25. Nah begitu Anda diterima di program studi, Anda bisa daftar LPDP, karena daftar LPDP kan harus ada pernyataan diterima. Nanti kami akan mengusahakan surat dari Unimelp yang menyatakan bahwa Anda sudah diterima. Bagi yang sudah diterima sebagai residen tahun pertama di program MDU-MDK, Anda tinggal menyatakan kepada ketua program studi bahwa ingin mengikuti program ini, dan nanti ketua program studi akan menghubungi Dr. Yunir dan kami yang akan menyiapkan surat untuk ke LPDP bahwa Anda sudah diterima untuk ini. Nanti kita yang mengurus dengan Melbourne, ada pernyataan bahwa Unimelp sudah bisa menerima Anda untuk, kan harus ada letter of acceptance dari Unimelp. Nanti kita yang mengusahakan. Tinggal mendaftar untuk LPDP dan berdoa diterima. Tapi tadi garantinya dari LPDP, nanti Pak Dakar yang sudah menyatakan bahwa LPDP menyatakan mereka tidak akan mempersulit lah, tapi tetap harus melewati fase wawancara dan sebagainya dari LPDP untuk dinyatakan diterima. Karena ada beberapa tes di LPDP yang lebih melihat kenasionalan Anda, bahwa sehabis ini Anda bersedia untuk membaktikan diri bagi Indonesia lagi, nggak kabur ke luar negeri misalnya. Nah itu yang dibutuhkan oleh LPDP. Jadi ada dua cara, bagi yang calon, Anda mendaftar dulu dan bisa langsung mendaftar untuk program double degree. Kalau yang sudah PPDS, Anda menemui ketua program studi menyatakan bahwa Anda ternyata berminat untuk double degree, masih bisa. Nanti KPS akan menulis surat pada dekan untuk menyatakan bahwa Anda ingin mengikuti program ini. Nanti kita settle. Memang penerimaan kita memang di bulan Desember ya. It is December your enrollment. if I'm not mistaken. Yes, January. So
We would start mid-year, yes? Yes, so you would start January in Australia. So you would start mid-year the year before in Indonesia.
it will be the next term because the first enrollment for UniMelb, because it's already very late, it is January. And it is not impossible for this January, but next January to be in Melbourne. But before that, you should finish the MDU MDK, you already there now. Jadi 1 tahun mungkin sebelum berangkat ke Melbourne, mengikuti dulu program rotasi dari fakultas, dari prodi masing-masing. Baru nanti Januari depan berangkat ke Melbourne. Ada beberapa hal yang harus dikerjakan nanti di sekitar setengah semester, 1 semester terakhir, diantaranya adalah mengikuti program etik. Itu harus dikerjakan, itu and it's already closed. The ethical preparation is already closed ya now. Yes, for this year, yes, it will begin at July. Jadi nanti Juli sudah mulai terlibat untuk ikut program etik online. Semuanya masih di Jakarta. Jadi nanti minta izin, kalau dapat izin dari ketua program studi, mulai Juli menyiapkan. Itu yang setengah tahun di Indonesia tuh inklusif kuliah-kuliah yang akan disettle oleh Uni Melbourne, but online. Tapi real berangkat ke Melbourne-nya, kalau yang sudah PPDS saat ini mendaftar, adalah Januari tahun depan. Jadi nanti silakan yang berminat mendiskusikan menghadap ke ketua program studi, nanti kita jelaskan lebih detail. Tapi kalau bagi yang baru mendaftar sekarang, Anda mendaftar sekarang, nanti bulan Juli baru mulai, walaupun MDU MDK-nya Januari, bulan Juli baru mengikuti program, berangkatnya tetap Januari tahun depan. Kita akan masih menerima lagi yang enrollment yang Juli. Masih bisa ada 2 angkatan lagi yang bisa masuk untuk berangkat bulan Januari. Tapi first come, first seat. Jadi we only have 25 seat. Jadi kalau sudah penuh ya berarti yang next akan ikut yang next January. So the program only begin every January, and then the settlement, the preparation could begin at July, every July. Yeah, that's for.
Yes, so I guess we'd open applications in January for the program, and then July commencing online here, and then in Melbourne, January the following year. The other thing, for the person who asked about the awards, from memory they open in April. So it's really important that if the LPDP pathway is not available to you, that you make that decision early in January so that you can apply for the Australia Award.
Jadi habis ini silahkan kalau ada yang berminat, mungkin yang lebih detail bisa diajukan, bisa berkomunikasi langsung dengan Dr. Yunir. Jadi nanti kami akan mengkomunikasikan dengan Dr. Anita dengan Melbourne. Jadi program ini mulai hari ini bisa dibuka untuk mereka yang sudah ada di program studi dan sudah selesai, sudah pasti sudah hampir menyelesaikan MDU MDK, dan pemberangkatan pertama untuk yang saat ini, karena kemarin kami terkendala sekitar 3 tahun because of the COVID situation. Kita tidak merunning program ini selama COVID karena Melbourne juga tertutup untuk it's closed for student from outside. Even our MD program only online ya. Jadi ini beruntung kita baru buka lagi dan itu baru penerimaan keberangkatan pertama akan Juni next depan, tapi program online sudah akan dimulai Julai next year. Cukup jelas mungkin, mohon maaf untuk terbatasan waktunya, saya kembalikan pada Dr. Fernandi. Silahkan untuk menghubungi atau menulis surat atau email mungkin ke ke dekanat kalau ada hal-hal yang perlu ditanyakan, atau berkonsultasi langsung dengan Dr. Yunir sebagai manajer pendidikan spesialis kita. Kami sangat berharap bahwa teman-teman mempergunakan kesempatan ini. Saya katakan it is a dream untuk yang nggak punya uang. Kalau yang punya uang mereka bisa ikut program international class kita. Itu sudah 20 tahun. Besok kita akan melayakan celebration 20 tahun kita untuk program internasional MD kita. Tapi untuk yang bermimpi untuk bisa ikut ini, mimpi Anda akan jadi kenyataan. Pak Dekan sangat senang untuk membuat semua mimpi menjadi kenyataan, dan ini adalah salah satu mimpi bagi yang kantongnya kurang-kurang tebal, untuk mimpinya jadi kenyataan bisa bersekolah di Melbourne. Saya pernah ikut hanya fellowship, Pak Dekan betul-betul ambil master, tapi Melbourne is a dream city for me. Jadi suasananya, sekolahnya, situasinya memang kita katakan itu sebagai kota pelajar. Anda perlu tahu bahwa Melbourne adalah kota saat ini satu dari 2 kota terbaik di dunia untuk tempat tinggal, kecuali Vancouver. Jadi tidak akan menyesal untuk stay. Yes, it is 2 of the best city in the country for living, except of Vancouver. So yes, of course you will say the best, me also. Thank you so much. Saya kembalikan Dr. Fernandi. Pak Dekan mungkin.
Ya, jadi saya rasa gini, apa yang kita persiapkan ini adalah dalam rangka kita melaksanakan Undang-Undang Kesehatan 17/2023, di mana nanti itu kan salah satu pendidikan spesialis dan subspesialis adalah hospital base. Jadi ini di masa mungkin di masa Anda udah jadi spesialis atau rumah sakit Anda itu jadi hospital base, tapi Anda sudah master, sudah siap segala macam gitu. Jadi kita nih sebenarnya mempersiapkan itu juga deh gitu loh, bahwa spesialis-spesialis kita pun juga punya kemampuan riset yang tinggi dan bahkan Anda juga sudah master gitu misalnya. Jadi ini artinya ya mesti seperti itulah kita gitu loh ya. Jadi riset-riset kita akan hebat di masa-masa depan. Makasih.
Baik. Can we have a big applause for Anita? Yeah. Oh yeah. So thank you very much. Can we have a picture?
Para residen, dokter, dan tamu lainnya, saat ini kita melakukan sesi foto. Untuk yang duduk di belakang mungkin boleh merapatkan ke depan juga.
Lampu boleh? Lampu? Nice. It was like this.
Once again, thank you very much for Professor Anita, Professor Ari, Professor Ovi, Dr. Munir, and Dr. Fernandi. For this session, as well as to the residents, doctors, and all attendees today for being very enthusiastic and interested in the program. As Professor Ovi explained earlier, if you have any more questions regarding the program, you can always send an email to the Dean office or ask the head of your programs. Thank you for everyone for coming for this event. You may leave through the exit in the front here. Keluarnya, izin dokter, keluarnya bisa dari depan aja. Jangan dari belakang katanya. Sekali lagi pada dokter dan hadirin, keluar boleh lewat depan karena akan dibagikan konsumsi. Kepada Pak mahasiswa FKUI yang KKI yang dulu pergi ke Uni Melbourne, boleh maju ke depan untuk berfoto bersama.